Thank you, Aaron, for your week 2 video discussion and response to the readings. Aaron S. for those keeping track, and you bring up Amar Jean Christian's open television, and I like that area you're pulling from. You mentioned Homicide Second Shift as one of these inaugural web series, or a kind of spin-off. So it's adding to the story without adding to the story or complicating what's going on TV, so people can have their TV program, but they can get more that's also in an entirely different direction but still linked online. You mentioned that serialized novel or novella type form, and that is in the Dickensian sense of literature, a classic model, right? That you get these serialized pieces of the story released not at the same time. I said Dickensian, Charles Dickens, right, of A Christmas Carol, of A Tale of Two Cities. His works, his masterworks, his most revered literary classics were released in that serialized form. That's similar to how comic books are first released in monthly installments, all right? So you get your chapter like once or twice a month, and then they slowly accrue to this larger story that they are telling over a period of time. That's not unlike how serialized cable dramas work, right? We're getting a piece of the puzzle every week in these little 30-minute to half hour, full hour, or whatever, the close minute, in these installments, and they're telling a long story in these bursts. It is once again, contemporary mediums borrowing from mediums of the past, and it's exciting to realize and revisit those norms, but also see how they innovate over time. Aaron mentions around page 35 the example of the hire, and brings up a question: what we see as web TV is similar to what TV used to be in some ways. And if advertising came into a larger role, does this take away from web-based programming as this new or innovative or freedom-filled, I'm paraphrasing now, commodity? I think that's an interesting question, an important question. I think it's a question we should absolutely be dissecting. Let me say this: for all of the independent content producers on the internet, guess what? Many of them, especially those moving in that medium range of internet-based success, they're investing a ton of labor and time into their product. And too often what we come across on the internet, it sure looks extemporaneous, right? People are just sitting around, oh, they're so clever, like off the cuff stuff. I see these viral videos all the time, shared by far too many of the same type of people on social media. But you see videos like, oh, this old country guy sitting in his truck, and he's just got this slice of life hot takes about X, Y, and Z from his type of ethics ideological position. And they're really good videos because the presenters are charismatic. Okay, they're engaging, and there's a kind of ethos to their message, and through their on-screen charisma, there is also a pathos, an emotional driven mechanism in play in those videos. And so they're compelling to the audiences, and there is this subtle illusion that this is someone's just finally had enough, and they had to self-record this rant, and boy, does it capture how I'm feeling, right? The average internet user that comes across it. And funny thing about those couple of dozen people out there is, they've got to this point of producing so many. I mean, they're making a living doing these kinds of videos, and if you're looking closely enough, they're making dozens if not hundreds of these videos, and then the right ones will strike a chord and get thousands and thousands of shares, and now they're generating revenue off of that, and now they're it's shifting. If they're successful enough, if they've got that central idea pinned down, they're shifting from being a kind of a novice act to becoming a pseudo professional performer. On social media, they're becoming a social media personality, a social media star, right? And it may not be, they're not making friends money, right, Destiny? But they are, many of them are becoming, finding quite the substantial living on their social media personas. And that's something to consider. Also, something else to consider, back to this idea of indie programming on the web. In terms of where Aaron's coming from, a lot of these artists, I mentioned they're investing a lot of time. They might be investing a lot of money. People, think about it. It's almost like independent directors, independent producers, right? In film, they have to cobble together a couple of $100,000 to get their feature finished or made or whatever, financed, and then they have to spend a ton of personal time, personal energy, personal labor, personal effort, blood, sweat, and tears to sell that movie, right? In other words, to take it to film, filmy things, right? the things when you go to show your film off, and that same thing is going on the internet. It's just often happening behind the scenes. All that work gets done before we're even looking at those videos or sharing and liking them and tweeting them and everything else. But their goal is, it is a business model. Everyone is seeking to quote unquote make it, because these are all, we might be getting creatively fulfilled as both a producer or a consumer, but there are economic ends at the end of the day, right? Something's got to keep the lights on. You've got to pay the internet bill's got to get paid somehow, right? To keep streaming all this content, to host all your archives of skateboarding accidents and stuff like that. So there is a business model behind it all, and even the most artistic of artists are seeking some kind of legitimacy, right? When they get to the next level, if you get to a level of financial security, then it can free you all over again to pursue more creative opportunities and get a lot more creative control back. But you have to kind of play that tiered game. And think about like Key and Peele, or these many of these comedians, right? They spend they're investing their entire lives creating sort of web-based or social media personas. They're tweeting jokes nonstop for free. They're putting out their content for free. But all of this is part of the game, the new game of reaching that status, so that they can finally get paid for it. And then they get a cushy gig. Maybe they're writing for a TV show, and then writing for a TV show leads to writing for another TV show. Writing for another TV show leads to running their own show. Running their own show leads to either maybe then getting to star on a show, or become a showrunner, right? Or become a producer, direct. So all of these things, you have to keep going through these hurdles of, proving yourself at all levels. And then the social media aspect of this process is the new frontier of where you can take your work, where you can showcase your work, how you can make new connections, how you can network, how you can grow a brand, establish an online identity, and so on, so that you can establish that physical identity. Okay, so we have seen this new dimension emerge, and I think that taps into a little bit of what Aaron is asking us to reflect on this week. I hope so. Anyway, fun activity, good prompt. Thank you.